think the tendency for us when we're a bit younger is to think that losing strength, losing muscle mass is just something that happens to old people. But the truth is, it starts much earlier.
Will Harlow has built a reputation by challenging what most people accept. A physiotherapist and founder behind millions of views online, he's helped people reclaim movement, reverse chronic pain, and take control of their bodies again.
We've got some really robust research now that shows that after the age of 35, we lose muscle mass at a rate of between 3 and 8% per decade if we don't do anything about it. You might be struggling to do something that you always took for granted. The problems I help them with are things that they probably took for granted their whole lives, until one day those silent problems suddenly weren't so silent anymore.
Today, he breaks down how to move without pain, take back control, and challenge everything you've been told about your body. He's showing people what's actually possible.
Quite often it's pain, but pain wasn't where it started. It usually started with just a stiff joint, but I'll ignore it, it will get better on its own, and then it doesn't. Now, research shows you can make serious progress with 20 minutes a couple of times a week. By far and away, the best place to start is resistance training. Any muscle mass you do add to your body is directly linked to a longer and a healthier life.
So Will, thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming down to Miami. I want to start it off just speaking about the condition that my audience is in right now, because my audience, they're, maybe 35 to 45 years old. They're all sitting for 10 plus hours a day, whether or not they're at an office job or they're building a company. Sometimes they're sitting more, they're sleeping not great, maybe 5-6 hours a night. So they're probably all telling themselves that they're fine. What's really happening to them right now?
I think the tendency for us when we're a bit younger is to think that losing strength, losing muscle mass, losing mobility is just something that happens to old people. But the truth is, it starts much earlier. And we've got some really robust research now that shows that after the age of 35, we lose muscle mass at a rate of between 3 and 8% per decade if we don't do anything about it. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but like anything, it compounds. So each decade that goes past, if you lose 8%, 35 to 45, another 8%, 45 to 55, suddenly when you're in your 60s, you might be struggling to do something that you always took for granted. So the thing I focus on, even though I focus on helping people who are a bit older, the problems I help them with are things that they probably took for granted their whole lives. Until one day, those silent problems suddenly weren't so silent anymore and have started to cause real impact in their lives.
I think that that's incredibly scary. So you say that 8% isn't significant, but it is, considering that most people don't take their health seriously even at 35. So, I mean, even their baseline is not significant. So I know I work out more than the average person because I've been into working out and lifting weights and sports since I was a kid. But for the average person, I go to the gym a couple times, but they don't have like considerable muscle mass and strength. They just have enough to keep healthy. I also mentioned before, I think my audience in particular, one fallacy that they truly believe is that they can ignore their body in pursuit of the business they're building or the career they're building, and then they'll figure it out later. The people that you sit down with, because I think you work with an older population, so 50, 60, 70, this is what they believe their whole life. And then what is the condition that sort of they find themselves in when they reach out to you? Like what is their reality? Is it pain? Is it they can't, catch their breath if they play with their kids or their grandkids? Like, what is the reality of somebody who all the beliefs that I just mentioned, they live those beliefs until they are 60 or 70? Like, what does their life feel like?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that tendency to go mañana with your health is always there, isn't it? Because, we're busy. You might be building a business, you're raising a family. It's like, I don't have time to go to the gym today. I don't have time to do what I said I was going to do for my health. I'll do it tomorrow. But then tomorrow becomes the next day and the next day. Now, in terms of what I see, and to be honest, the average age of the person who comes in to see us is 65 to 75. And quite often it's pain, but pain wasn't where it started. It usually started with just a stiff joint. Something doesn't feel quite right, it doesn't feel quite as supple as it used to, but I'll ignore it. It will get better on its own. And then it doesn't. Or, oh, do you know what? I'm not seeing the same muscle mass in the mirror that I used to see anymore, but it'll be all right. I'll come to it tomorrow. I'll get into the gym tomorrow. But then those things quietly lead to symptoms later that we can feel. So it could be pain. So we see a lot of, knee pains, back pains, hip pains, but it also could be this feeling that independence is slipping away. So one of the big reasons people come to see us is because they said, I'm terrified because I used to be able to get up and down from the floor.
Yeah.
And I realized the other day that I was down on the floor and I couldn't get up.
And people that are 65 to 75 are saying this.
Yeah, absolutely. Even younger.
That seems very young.
It seems young, but this is the reality. And I had a patient who came to see me a while ago, a lady who was in her late 60s. So she was not an old lady. She was young. She lives alone. She was out in the garden and she got down onto her hands and knees to pull up some weeds, right? She tried to get back up again and realized she couldn't get up. She was in the house on her own. There was no one around. So what did she do? She had to crawl back to the house to get her mobile phone from the table at the bottom of the garden to call her neighbor to come over and help her. Now, she wasn't hurt. She was fine, but she was scared because she was caught off guard by this. She thought, I never thought I would be the kind of person that would struggle to do something like this. So helping people to avoid getting to that point is one of my big missions. And the truth of the matter is that it's totally preventable. Like these things, getting up and off the ground, getting up and out of a chair without assistance, pretty much anyone can maintain that if they put into action a plan early enough.
What's happening when somebody goes to pick up weeds out of their garden and they can't get up? Like, what is breaking in your body? Because that is horrifying. Like, if that happened to me, I'd be horrified. I'd feel like, I was going to ask you about the title of your book, about independence and independence for life. But now that makes a lot of sense. Just like that quick frame that you just you walk through. Yeah. I feel like if that happened to me, I feel like I've completely lost control of my entire life. Like not being able to control your own body is the scariest thing. So when I think about people going to this episode, this show, they're listening like, oh, like I get mobility and pains in my knees and stuff like that. That sucks, but I don't think it really hits as something that's too stressful. Yeah. It's just an inconvenience or an annoyance people associate with getting older. But this image of, bending over, grabbing weeds and not being able, like physically not being able to get up, that's actually horrifying to me, I'm sure to a lot of people. Anyway, so what's happening when what's happening with your body when you can't get up and you can't do the thing that obviously for the past 60 years of your life was no problem? Yeah,
there's usually one of three things that's gone wrong. So the first thing that's gone wrong is the person's lost mobility in one of those key joints. So typically for that lady, it was her hip or her knee that was causing the problem. For her, it was her knee. She actually just couldn't bend the knee enough to get it underneath her. The knee wasn't painful. It's just that she had some arthritis in there. She was dealing with it. It was just causing stiffness in the mornings. She hadn't realized she actually couldn't bend it much further than 90 degrees to get it underneath her. So she was stuck.
She didn't know.
She didn't know. No, she didn't know, because you don't have to bend your knee that much just to do your normal daily tasks until you're down on the floor or until you're in a very low chair. So you're caught off guard. Now, the second thing that can go wrong, and this links to the loss of mobility, is pain. So sometimes these conditions like arthritis or other injuries can cause pain, and that can strip someone of their ability to do all their normal things just because it hurts too much. But I would say the most serious one and the most insidious one is a loss of strength. Okay, and you know this from heading into the gym that, the more you train, the more you exercise, the stronger you get. Whereas also it works in reverse. So if you're not doing any of these things, slowly weakness sets in, muscle mass is lost, but not just muscle mass, it's also strength as an attribute as well, the ability to move your body against gravity. And I've had people who've come in and not necessarily getting up and off the floor has been a problem, but getting in and out of low chairs. And they're like, I want to get up, but I just can't. I have to use my hands, or someone has to help me. And it's because they've lost their muscle mass and their strength in their legs.
That's horrifying. So this is a woman, by an objective standard, not old at all.
No, and healthy by an objective standard. If you looked at her, you would say she's fine.
So this is as scary. Obviously, not as the end result is not as bad, but just as scary as, for example, um, there's these cases of like heart conditions where you never feel any issue, and then all of a sudden you drop dead at like 45 of a heart attack, and nothing felt wrong with your body. This is what it's giving. Like, this is the same. Obviously, you're not dying, God forbid, but you don't see anything wrong. You don't feel anything wrong. And then all of a sudden you try to do something that you could do your whole life and you can't do it anymore. So that's scary because someone's like, shit. Well, how do I know if my body's degrading? Is there a test or something that people can do to just see if they're moving in the right or the wrong direction? Is it like an MRI, a CT, a mobility test? Like, what's the signal that people should look for? That, again, if right now they're listening to this and they do this thing, they're like, oh shit, I haven't been paying enough attention. I can clearly tell that things are not as good as they used to be, but I haven't noticed because I've never done this one test before.
Sure, absolutely. There's actually a few things they can do, and they all screen different attributes in different parts of the body. So I'll give you a couple. What I'll first say is you don't really need a DEXA scan or an MRI to see these things. Just look at your function with these tests, and that will tell you everything you need to know. So some of the tests I like to tell people, just a up and down from the floor test, right? And the way this works is you start standing, you get down to the floor however you want to get down there, and you lie flat on your back, and then you sit up and get up however you want to get up, and you get to a full standing position. Now you want to time yourself from top to bottom to back up again. And you should be able to do that in less than 10 seconds. Okay, so this is a really clear test people can do at home. Now, if it takes you longer than 10 seconds, you're probably lacking mobility or strength somewhere in that full body unit. And the good news is those attributes can be trained and regained.
At any point in your life?
At any point in your life. There is no such thing as too late when it comes to strength and mobility.
So that person that I first mentioned, the person who's, sitting at their desk at a corporate job or just at their home, like right there in the corner, I'm sitting there working all day. What should they start doing if they're not actively going to the gym? And then I'm going to ask you another question too about people that are active, going to the gym, but maybe not doing the right thing. So the person is doing nothing. Like, they have been, okay. Because I hear this a lot. I hear people, especially, I've had people on this podcast say, I'll worry about working out later. I'm focused on making money now. I'm building my business. I have no time. That can be a whole conversation about priorities. And I'm a big believer that if you're in build mode, you should carve out time for other things, relationships, physical health, mental health, for sure. But say somebody is just in build mode, because that happens. And they're like, waking up at 6 a.m., going to bed at 2, waking up, going to bed, just work. Where do they start?
So before I tell them where to start, what I would try and do is challenge that assumption that if you're in build mode, that's all you should be focusing on. Because from my own personal experience, I've found that if I'm in build mode, if I still manage to find 30 to 40 minutes to work out on that day, the rest of the day is actually more productive than if I just had my head down the whole day. So why are you just telling yourself a story that you don't have time for it because you need to be so productive as an excuse to avoid it? Or is it really the case that you don't have the time? Now, if you can find 20 or 30 minutes per day, there's so much you can do with that short period of time. So this is another myth. People think, well, I don't have an hour and a half available today, so there's just no point me doing anything. Now, research shows that's not the case. Like, you can make serious progress with 20 minutes a couple of times a week. And if that is all you have available to you, by far and away, the best place to start is resistance training. Now, I have something I like to tell busy professionals who come to see me called the 3-2-1 rule. And this is a really simple way to start moving the body against resistance to make progress. And before I tell you more about the 3-2-1 rule, it doesn't mean you have to get in a gym either. You can do resistance training at home with just your body weight or a bag filled up with books or a couple of heavy things that you find in the garden. You don't need a gym membership for it.
We all figured this out during COVID too, by the way.
And it works. Like, people were staying fit. Some people got fitter than they ever had been in their gardens, right?
I was lifting up lifting up like the 24 packs of like water bottles. Yeah. And like I was doing the most ridiculous. Like,
you had to get so creative, but it works, right? Because you're still moving against resistance. But once you've figured out that you don't need a gym and you can do some stuff at home, the 3-2-1 rule is you pick 3 exercises and we try and pick something that's a compound movement each time. So a compound movement is anything that works multiple muscle groups and moves multiple joints in the body. Okay. The 2 part of it is you just do it twice a week. So it will take you 20 minutes twice a week. And then the 1 part is each week you do it, you try and progress one thing. So it could be a tiny bit more weight, or 1 extra rep each set that you do, or you slow the movement down and try and improve your technique. Now you might be thinking, is that enough to make progress? Time and time again, the science shows it is. And just dedicating that twice a week session for a group of older people in one study, they did it for 12 weeks. They improved their leg strength by more than 30% in that 12-week period from the starting point. So it's enough to make serious progress.
So this could be push-ups. This could be something where you're working out your back, doing squats, just no weight beside your desk.
100%.
What is that actually doing to your body? So obviously muscle mass, bone strength as well. And is that really what is joint? Is there, like, what is the things that break down? So you mentioned if you don't do any of this, yes, your muscle mass deteriorates, but that's not the only thing, obviously, that impacts your health and wellness. Like if you can't move your knee and you have mobility issues, yeah, there's muscle in there, but there's like other things that are causing that. So what are all the things this helps? Because if I'm thinking about from like a working out perspective, so you have muscle mass, you have I don't like, listen, I know enough to be dangerous, but not as much as you by any means. So obviously your joints as well, your bone and your bone density, is that so what are all the things that this actually does, even just doing the 20 minutes a day?
All of the above. Okay. So I always prioritize resistance training because it really is the closest we've got to a magic pill for improving your health. So we know that resistance training improves strength and it improves muscle mass. That's a given. But you're absolutely right, bone density as well, particularly if you're training with slightly heavier weights. Okay. Now, one of the other things that people often tell me or ask me is that if I'm doing all this resistance training, do I need to do lots of stretching as well? And we used to think it was the case that the more you trained, the stiffer you got. Okay. Because you know, muscle bound, we've all heard that term. It's actually the opposite. So research shows that training with resistance is as effective for improving the flexibility of your muscles as a stretching program.
Really?
Yes. But with the resistance training, you also get the added benefits of the muscle, the strength, and the bone density as well. So you can almost improve all your, the entire musculoskeletal system with this one practice. The other thing it does is it improves the health of your joints. So we've got certain substances inside our joints. We've got cartilage, of course. We've also got this fluid inside as well, which is almost like the body's natural WD-40. And resistance training increases the health of the cartilage, and it also adds to that fluid. So you've got better movement of your joints, symptoms of arthritis drop, and you're less likely to develop these jointy type issues in the future as well.
So when people are doing this, first of all, it's great if you look good, but this is really not the point at all. This is not the point. The goal is to just live a healthy life. So if you're saying that if you do 20 minutes, what was it? So 20 minutes?
Yeah. Twice a week. And this is bare minimum. So this is like minimum effective dose.
Yes.
So I'm not saying this is like the maximum you should do, but if you're strapped for time, this is a great place to start. And then you can add in either another session or you can extend your 2 sessions to 30, 40 minutes each time.
And this would, if you fast forward a 30-year-old who starts doing this, what does their life look like at 60, 70, 80, 90, if they're living that long? Hopefully everyone lives to 150, but what does their life actually looks like?
Yeah, 100%. So I want to just come back to what you said before about, we're not doing this because of the way we look, right? Yeah. And you will get improvements in the mirror if you do this as well. But of course, that's not the primary benefit. It's almost a secondary benefit. Yeah. However, any muscle mass you do add to your body is directly linked to a longer and a healthier life. So muscle mass itself, so the amount of muscle tissue on your body, is independently associated with just about every positive health outcome. So less diabetes, less heart disease, even less anxiety and depression, less dementia. All of these things are associated with having more muscle mass. And it also works in reverse. So for every 10% drop in your muscle mass index, there's about an 11% increase in your likelihood of all-cause mortality, so dying from any cause. which is pretty scary, right?
Horrifying. So what's all the other forms of working out? So biking, playing sports, going for runs, all these different things, like pure aerobic exercise. Where do they fit into this?
They're great for your heart's health and the health of your lungs. And they're great for almost like your engine. So they're important as well. But resistance training gives you some of that too, actually probably in more measures than most people assume. So if you are strapped for time, it's resistance training's got to take priority in my mind.
Crazy, because sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just thinking about the people that I know that are a little bit older. They always focus on cardio. Mostly cardio, and then I don't go to the gym as much, but at least I go for runs or walks or biking or stuff like that. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, definitely. And this is the thing, like there's not many people who come in to see us who are doing a resistance training practice, but a lot of them are running, a lot of them are cycling, but they have these joint problems. They're still weak in their legs. They're struggling with their upper body stuff as well. And the cardio aspect is great for your health. Like, I'm not saying don't do it. It's fantastic, but it doesn't help as much with bone density. It certainly doesn't help as much with muscle mass, and it certainly isn't enough to keep you strong. So if you're trying to become the ultimate human and you want the full spectrum of health, you need both. But if you can only prioritize one, I think resistance training wins out every time.
Do you ever wonder why people gravitate more towards cardio than resistance training?
I think it's probably just a cultural thing. So many years that we've thought that, that's the best thing you can do for your heart and your health, and that's what keeps people fit, in inverted commas. And if you wind back to the 70s and the 80s, all the messaging, especially for women, was you need to get toned by running and cycling and doing all this cardio. We now know that not only was that not helping them with the things that they wanted, like looking more toned, it was in excess. It was probably even damaging bone density.
In excess,
doing too much. Because then you had these people that were doing, 6-7 days a week of hard cardio, and that was affecting them hormonally. They were getting actual muscle and bone tissue breakdown from doing too much.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So I think we've come a long way. But particularly in the population I treat, cardio is still way more popular than resistance training.
I mean, you have exposure to way more of a sample size than I do, but just like anecdotally, the people that I know that are older, they all do cardio, and they always make excuses as to why they don't go to the gym. Like, oh, well, at least I go, for runs. Yeah. So I've always, I can't remember where I heard this. The number one predictor of longevity is your VO2 max and your ability to basically lift something heavy. But I think that is misunderstood as, weightlifting doesn't contribute to my VO2 max at all. Does it?
It does.
And actually, let me rephrase, because I go to the gym and there's definitely ways that I can work out and lift where I am not out of breath. And then there's ways that I work out where I'm definitely out of breath. And I guess really the answer is like, what are your goals? But because a lot of strength coaches and lifting coaches will not tell you to like lift in a cadence that's going to elevate your heart rate to the same degree as like a low state cardio. They'll say like take like long breaks and stuff. But would you say for the average person, it actually makes a little bit of sense to increase the, increase the what's the word I'm looking for? The tempo, yeah, that's a perfect word, of your lifting?
Yeah, I think
you get both benefits out of sort of like one gym session?
I think it's good to mix and match and to have a variety. So there's definitely some benefits of increasing the tempo and fitting more into less time, not least because you get the same amount of work done in less time. So if you've got your busy professional, like a HIIT workout or something like that, which involves some element of lifting weights, is a brilliant way to tackle both things at the same time. But the positive improvements in VO2 max are underestimated just from the typical, 3 sets of 10 type gym work. That will still improve your heart and lung health to a degree. Not quite as much as, the hard cardio, but you still do get that benefit. And people that resistance train often, independent of any other type of exercise that they do have lower rates of cardiovascular disease. They do have better blood pressure. They do have better blood sugar control. So all of these things that are big health risks are definitely controlled to a degree by resistance training alone.
Other things that I think people understand now are very beneficial to their health. So I'm just curious about what else you recommend in terms of diet. Is like a moderate protein or a higher protein, obviously a certain amount of sleep as well. Like, what are the other things? You can just go through a list so people understand the things that they should pay attention to based on like all the people you've worked with. If you're going to talk to a 25 or 30 or 35-year-old saying, hey, this is how much you should sleep, this is what you should generally eat, this is what the rest of your life should look like on top of the resistance training, what would be the advice?
Yeah, so I keep it very general when it comes to diet, because I'm not necessarily the diet guy. I'm more of a movement guy. But when it comes to diet, one of the big building blocks that we know is so important now is protein intake. And I was really pleased to see that quite recently the US government changed their guidelines to increase what they recommend the population should get in terms of daily protein intake from 0.8 grams per kilogram per day, which is a tiny amount, up to 1.6. So they essentially doubled it. Now, this is very much evidence-based. We can see it in the research that people that have this higher protein intake, it's sparing of muscle. So even if you're in a calorie deficit or you're unwell or you're not able to train, if you have a higher protein intake, this muscle loss with age, we call sarcopenia, is much less. And then if you combine it with resistance training, it's like really pouring gas on the fire, right? It makes it much more effective. You'll build more muscle and you'll stay stronger. So hitting those daily protein targets is really, really important. Then I'd also say that the older someone gets, the more important it is not to cut your calories too low. Like, there's a lot of diet culture around, and it often revolves around these crash diets, doesn't it? Of people saying, right, I'm going to be super restrictive for 6 weeks.
Well, even with peptides now, people are trying to figure a way to feel no hunger ever. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, this is one of the things that's come out with these GLP-1s is the fact that people are so effective that people aren't hungry. They're not hitting their protein intake and they're actually losing a lot of muscle alongside the fat too. But you can have the same effects from a diet if you're too aggressive with it. So not dropping into too dramatic of a deficit is really important for maintaining that muscle mass. So kind of that's as far as I go with diet, and as much whole foods as opposed to artificial foods. That's also really vital as well to keep you healthy. When it comes to sleep, there's a weird myth out there that the older we get, the less sleep we need. That's actually not true. So everyone needs 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night, no matter your age. Like if you're a teenager, actually you need slightly more. But any adult, 7 to 9 hours, 99.9% of people need that to stay healthy. There's some strange genetic variants where they can run for life off like 5 hours of sleep. That's not the norm. And if you are running off that much, chances are your health is impaired in some way. Now, one of the catch-22s of that, a cruel irony, is the older you get, the more sleep interruptions there are, sleep quality drops. So you have to work harder to get that good quality sleep.
But still, obviously, I didn't know that was a myth. I didn't know that people believe that you needed less sleep as you get older. But I actually have heard this from people. Because I think there's a variety of things that wake you up at night, whether or not you have to go to the bathroom more or your kids are waking you up. Like, there's always something, right? But I have heard that from guys that were like 65. I remember this, the second you said that, this one guy sticks out. I used to work with this guy. I was very early in my career, and he's like, yeah, I sleep like 3-4 hours a night. And to me, that was just like mind blowing. And he's like, no, I'm fine. I feel like he's not fine. I feel like he's not fine at all. But that was like just a norm.
Only
he
will know what's going on underneath the hood.
But he was okay with that, or he thought he was okay with that. Interesting. Your patients who age well versus the ones who don't, outside of doing all these things like, taking action and taking your health into your own hands and resistance training and sleep and diet, what's one belief that actually separates them?
I think it comes down to consistency. And the people who do well initially and then they drop off, or they have recurrent problems that they're kind of making progress with and then they go back to square one, it often comes down to not being able to be consistent. And the people who do really well, they've stayed consistent for such a long time that doing the thing becomes part of their identity. And I think this is a really important point for anyone who's trying to stick with anything. The longer you're able to push through that first 6, 12, 18 weeks where it feels really tough, the more chance you have of this becoming just something you do. Like, I don't know about you, Scott, but I guess now that you've been to the gym for such a long time, you probably don't have to wake up and go, oh, should I go to the gym today? I'm not sure if I feel like it.
No, not at all.
You just go, right?
For me, it's relaxing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's probably just become part of who you are. And you say, I am the kind of person who does this. Now, there's something really deep in there. That is one of the secrets to staying healthy in just about any pursuit, is if you can make something that's good for you part of your identity, I really do believe that's one of the key ingredients of sticking with something, even when it initially feels tough.
HubSpot is a success story partner. Now, customers are using traditional search less and less to find the businesses they want to buy from. Now, when a buyer or a customer asks AI for a solution like yours, does your business come up? They're looking for a product, they're looking for a service, and they're going into some AI chat tool and they're saying, hey, help me find the best one. If your company isn't showing up, you're missing out. And most companies have no idea if their business is showing up or even how to show up. And by the time they figure it out, they've already lost a deal to somebody that figured out AI. This is what AEO is: answer engine optimization. HubSpot AEO helps you show up in those moments with the right answers that your buyers and your customers are looking for. It could be before the first click, before the first form fill. That's the moment HubSpot AEO is built for. So check out HubSpot.com to learn more about AEO. HubSpot is the agentic customer platform for growing businesses. NetSuite is a success story partner. Now, look, I talk to a lot of operators and founders and entrepreneurs on this show, and the ones who are pulling ahead right now all have one thing in common. They stopped treating AI like a buzzword, and they started actually running their business with it. The ones who are still on the sidelines, their competitors are eating their lunch. NetSuite by Oracle is the #1 AI cloud ERP. 43,000 businesses run on it. It takes your financials, your inventory, your commerce, your HR, your CRM. It puts it all into one platform, one source of truth. And because all that data is connected, the AI is actually useful. It's not guessing, it knows your business. It automates the stuff you shouldn't be doing manually, surfaces things that you'd normally miss, and it lets you make faster calls with real confidence. Software, healthcare, manufacturing, financial services, it does not matter. They build it around you. If I needed an ERP, this is what I use. If your company's doing 7 figures or more, go grab their free guide, Demystifying AI, at netsuite.com/Scott Clary. It's free, netsuite.com/Scott Clary. That's netsuite.com/Scott Clary.
Like, I think a lot of people know what they should do, but they're not doing it. Why is that? Is it they can't make it past the first 6 months? Is it the mañana, later problem? Like, what is the thing that's stopping the smart person from doing the thing they should do? If, say, they believe, which I think majority of them do, that health is important. I'm sure there's some, I've spoken to a couple guys that for some reason they truly believe that, they're almost invincible and they'll figure it out later. But outside of that edge case personality, I think most people understand the benefits of health, wellness, physical training, good diet, good sleep. Smart people, successful people figured out the rest of their life. And then this one part, they just, what's going on?
Yeah, and before we set the cameras rolling, we were talking about, how there's no shortage of information. So we're in the golden age now. We've got, the entire internet of information. Now we've got AI to organize it all for us. It's like no one ever has an excuse now to not almost know what to do, but sticking with it is still just as hard as it's always been. So why is that? Well, I like to break it down for the people who are struggling to stick to something, and I'll include myself in that as well, because I have things where I struggle to stay consistent. And I like to break down 2 driving forces into motivation and discipline, and I think they're very separate. So motivation, I like to think of as your reason why, so why you do something. And you can have a positive motivation, which is driving towards something, and you can have negative motivation, which is running away from something or driving away from something. So to give you a couple of examples, I had a patient who came to see me who was in his mid-70s, and he said, Will, I can't walk very well, and I've just found out my daughter is getting married at the end of next year, and my one goal is to be able to walk her down the aisle without my stick. So he had a very strong forward pushing motivation, like he had a goal he wanted to hit. So for him, every time it felt tough, or he thought, I can't be bothered to do these exercises today, he had that thing in his mind and he was like, this is important, right? The stakes are high. And on the other side, I had a lady who came in to see me. She had pretty mild knee pain. It wasn't that bad, but she goes, I'm coming to see you now because I've watched what happened to my mum, and she developed knee pain like this at the same age I am now. And 20 years later, she's in a wheelchair. And I don't want that to happen to me. So I am doing everything I can to avoid ending up in that same way. So she had motivation as well, but her why was moving away from something. Now, both of those are equally powerful, but I think it's really important to define what the why is for you. And it's going to be completely unique. It's going to be completely individual. And once you can pick something that truly does motivate you, that makes those tough days a lot easier. And then on the other side, we've got discipline as well. And discipline is a separate force. And I like to think of discipline as a force that's there when that motivation, that why, doesn't feel so prominent in your mind. Because we're all going to have days where we wake up and go, do you know what? I know this is really important, but I just don't feel like it today. You want discipline, to just fill that gap on those tough days to get you across the line. But you can't use it every day because it's like a battery. And there's research that shows that the more you challenge someone's discipline, the more likely it is to wear down and eventually to break. So there's some cool studies out there on offices. You know, when people bring in cakes and donuts and things like that, and there's a strong correlation between the number of times the person has to walk past the cakes and how likely they are to pick one of them up when they said no the first time. The more times you have to walk past it, the more likely you are to pick one up. And it's because every time you go past it, you're using a little bit of that discipline to say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Oh, go on then.
And eventually you break.
Yeah. But it's the same for us when it comes to exercise and sticking with anything really. It might be working on your business. You waking up and it's like, got this thing I need to do. I know it's going to be really unpleasant. I don't want to do it. Let's just use a bit of that discipline to force myself to do it. But if you have to do that every morning, it's not going to be sustainable. It's going to run out eventually. So I like to think of those two as a pair. Yeah. So the motivation and the discipline. Motivation should be the primary force. When it's not there, use some of that battery in the form of discipline. But if you're always relying on the battery, eventually you're going to run out.
So if that's the case, what is the answer then so that you don't have to rely on discipline? Is it environment? Like, what is it? Because even you mentioned that one story or the analogy of walking past a cake every single day. So the answer in my mind would be, well, if there's no cake, then you don't have to deplete your discipline. But is that really it? Is it just the environment you create that sort of encourages the action without discipline or motivation?
There's a few things you can do. If you've got your why, your motivation, yeah, and you understand that you can't use discipline all the time, and there's still a gap there, right? Number one is environmental, so absolutely. And you want to think of environmental in two directions. So you want to make it harder for yourself to do the thing that you want to avoid and easier for yourself to do the thing that you want to do. So a great example I give to my patients is if you want to get up in the morning and go for a walk because you said you were going to do it and it's important for whatever we're trying to fix, tidy away everything in your room, all the clothes, except for your walking outfit. So your walking boots, your socks, your shorts, your t-shirt, that's laid out at the end of the bed, and you've made it harder for yourself to put on anything that isn't that. It's the same as when people are on a diet. The best thing you can do is just get rid of all the junk food from the fridge. Even if you say to yourself, no, I'm still allowed junk food, I just have to go to the shop and get it, half the time you'll go, can't be bothered. You know, I've got healthy food in the fridge, I'll just have that. So it works really, really well. Another thing you can do is lean on other people. So this is vital. And I try and use this a lot with my patients. It's one of the reasons now in my business, we're really leaning into in-person events and trying to get our patients and our online members together in person so they can meet each other, talk about their shared goals. It's almost like having an accountability partner. So I'm not sure about research on this, but I just know from my own life that if I've had an important goal, if I know I've got a friend or someone else who is working towards something similar, even if it's not the same, and you agree to check in regularly with each other, the chances you're going to stick to your thing are so much higher. And I think we can leverage that too. It's almost like positive social pressure.
I like that.
Because if your friend's texting you going, did you do the thing today? And you're like, I should have, but I didn't. you know, there's only so many times you want to send that text back.
Of course. No, I like that. I like that a lot. The stat you mentioned at the beginning, the 8% muscle loss per decade. How do you make somebody feel that stat and understand that stat if they won't really physically feel it for 15 or 20 years?
It's a really good question. It's such a tough thing to do because it's one of those things that it doesn't feel urgent until it is. So I like to frame it with people as like, what would you like to be able to do that you can't do right now? So come at it from a positive angle. Find something that it might be, you know, I'd like to be able to lift up my grandkids. Or I'd like to be able to, you know, lift the grandkids in 15 years. And you just make them aware that if they continue on the same trajectory that they're on now, then that actually might not be a reality unless something is put in place. It's a really tricky one though, because like as humans, we are programmed really to look at the most urgent thing, the most immediate thing. And if that's not forthcoming, it's tough. It takes discipline. It takes, you know, knowing what life's going to look like in the future. And yeah, there's no easy answer to that one.
There's no easy answer. Obviously, you have the science and the data, and you have the case studies to show why it's important.
It only goes so far though, doesn't it? If you don't feel it in your own body.
Yeah, it's true. I'm trying to think about, I mean, it's interesting to me because like health and wellness has always been such an important part of my life. I couldn't imagine my life without it, but I know that that's not the reality for most people. I mean, I think that my evolution of health, wellness, working out started from when I was playing tennis at a young age, and I played every sport under the sun. So it was always part of my life. And then, you know, I used to play a lot of hockey. It's very cliche. I'm Canadian. And if you aren't drafted and you don't have a future getting paid to play hockey by the time you're like 16, you're like, okay, well, I got to like figure out like a real job. And then, but I didn't want to, and then I didn't want to just let that athleticism die. So you just sort of maintain it with the gym through your whole life, and it just becomes part of your identity, your personality. But I know for a lot of people, it hasn't been their whole life, or they've let it. Most people were athletic at a younger age. They participated in some sort of sport, organized or otherwise. And then by the time, you know, work happens and you get busy, and then you feel like you can't get back to where you were before, and you try to go to the gym and your body doesn't work the way it used to, and then you give up. But you're saying that, listen, even this incremental amount of athleticism and resistance training will still make your life incredibly better. So like, don't worry about the fact that if you took 15 years off and you go back to the gym, you can't bench what you could bench when you were, you know, 18 years old, 20 years old. That's not the point. It's not and I think that's what screws up a lot of people. They think, well, what's the point? I know you have a story that you speak about. I want you to tell the story to the audience about the 94-year-old who also said, what's the point? And basically didn't think there was anything that they could do for their health and well-being. But this, to me, I thought was very interesting. So you worked with this 94-year-old that were basically going to give up, and then like a lot changed in their life in sort of a 1 month, 4 week period.
Yeah, I mean, there's been lots of stories like this.
But that's old. That's a very old person.
Yeah.
So,
and people are surprised by this because even people in their 60s and their 70s say, "Oh, surely it's too late." But it's absolutely not too late, and we have tons and tons of evidence that this is you can improve at any age. You can improve muscle, you can improve strength, you can regain mobility. You can't always eliminate pain, but you can improve those attributes, which usually has a positive impact on pain as well. So, I mean, this story in particular, so I had a lady who came to see me. She was 94 years old, as you said. She was unable to walk without assistance. So she came in, her husband brought her in every time. She almost didn't come at all because she was scared of just being told one more time that this is just your age. What do you expect? Do you know what I mean? What do you expect? You're 94 years old.
she was scared. She was just gonna, like, her belief was that it was too late, and she didn't want to hear that her belief was true.
Yeah, to hear it again, because you've been told by doctors, you've been told by other physios.
So she's
tried things, and this is not, you know, not at 94, but earlier in life. And probably in her 80s, she'd had pain, she had had weakness, she was losing her ability to walk well, and she'd gone to seek help, and people were giving it like a token try. but it was like, oh, well, I guess this is just it for you now. And I think over time, she just didn't want to hear it one more time that nothing was possible. So she'd given up. Now, something obviously in either my content or a friend had told her about me, something spoke to her and she thought, I'm going to give it one more go. So the bravery to do that was massive. But she was brought in by her husband. She had pain in the knees. She was weak. She couldn't get out of a chair without assistance. But we started from where she was. So we started with some very gentle, just seated exercises that she could do at home, just little and often, just getting her moving. And even though she didn't feel a huge change in that first week, it was like something was starting to move. You know, the joints that hadn't moved for a while were feeling a little bit more supple. And she was starting to get confidence in controlling those legs again. Came in the next time, there was a bit of progress there. Like she could walk a few extra steps without help. She came in the week after. And suddenly it was like, well, I'm hardly helping you out of this chair now. And I was there for support, but it was her doing all of the work. And then a few weeks down the line, I mean, 4 weeks, there was a change, but it was about 8-10 weeks time. She came in, no husband in sight. He's waiting in the car. So she'd walked all the way in. She was beaming. And that fear of falling that she'd had the whole time, that was much reduced. She still had the knee pain, but it was under control and she got her life back.
Why were you able to do this when she had obviously actually taken effort and gone to other people before and they weren't able to do anything? What was the difference in what you know and what you teach and what you help people with?
I just don't give up on people. I'm not that special when it comes to physio. Like I'm an okay physio, right? I know my way around the human body. But I don't have crazy exercises that no one else has. I don't have weird techniques and I don't have magic hands, all right? But I don't give up on people. And I think that approach just gives people hope when they didn't have it before. So I've tried to work out why, you know, so many people have been drawn to the content I've made. And like I look at my content sometimes and I'm like, that video is not even that good. And it's got like 1 million views. But I think if you look at, you know, the way I talk, I think what's clear is that I'm always trying to give people that hope because I truly believe it. And I don't just believe it because I've seen it. I believe it because the evidence is there to show that people can improve at any age. And just on the plane over here, I always get like a recent research digest to read every week. So what's come out. And I found a study where a group of 90-plus-year-old nursing home residents were given a leg strengthening program for 8 weeks, right? So most of these people are not moving, right? They're sat in a chair. And in 8 weeks, the average improvement in leg strength was 175%. And they're in their 90s. And we're believing this myth that once you get past 65, nothing can be done. It's just not true. Like it's just not true. So my biggest goal is to try and bust these myths and give people hope that, you know, no matter where they are now, there's still hope.
The body is incredible.
Yeah.
The human body is absolutely incredible. So again, I'm not that age, so I haven't had these conversations with my doctor, but is that the reality for most people that, you know, they go to their GP and they're like, well, there's not much you can do at this age?
I don't want to give, GPs a bad name because there's some amazing GPs, amazing doctors. And I think it really does depend on who you see.
Or what's the myth?
From an NHS background, so our big national health service in the UK, you go and see your doctor, they've got a total allocated time of 10 minutes to go and get you, welcome you in, bit of small talk, ask about the problem, and then write up all your notes. It's not enough, right? So I think what's happening is if someone's coming in and the GP thinks this seems unrealistic, it's easier for me to just say, what do you expect? You know, most people are in this position.
Yeah.
So I think that could be sometimes the go-to, or perhaps the person who's delivering the advice just doesn't know what's possible sometimes. And what I would also say is to get people to the point where they're improving, it's often not easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes planning. It takes trying to motivate the person. And quite frankly, a lot of places that help people in this population are just not set up with the time and the resources to do that.
No, the goal is not to hate on GPs that are incredible people, but I think that, listen, I'm a big fan of advocating for yourself. And I feel like sometimes the traditional medical system that we all take part in, and I mean, I'm Canadian, so very similar to the UK, a little bit different in the US, but even in the US, like sometimes I have to go in and tell them what I need. Even in Canada, I have to go in and tell them what I need and push and push and push. And you're right, in like a 10-minute, 15-minute visit with my family doctor, they're not going to be able to do everything that you would be able to do for a person spending hours with them, obviously. So it's not like it's not malicious. It's just there's real limitations.
I 100% agree. And I always say to my team, like, how lucky are we that we actually get to spend 12, 15, 20 hours with someone? So we see them right through the journey. The doctor gets 10 minutes. Like, you can't compare. So they're structurally not able to help people with these kinds of problems, these chronic long-term things as we are. So it's absolutely no hate and no shade thrown on doctors. They're doing an unbelievable job, and they're trained to pick up things that are going to shorten someone's life, right? And fix those things. If it's perceived as just a quality of life thing, I think that gets knocked down to second tier priority sometimes, just because of the pressures they're under.
So your book, congratulations, Independence for Life. So that launches May 26th. So when people are listening to this, they'll be able to go get the book. Now, it's interesting because your book is entitled Independence for Life, not Strength for Life, not Mobility for Life. Why independence?
I think independence is one of the most important things that we take for granted. And I define independence as being able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, right? Now, who doesn't want independence if you define it like that? And the reason I call it independence for life is because independence is a catch-all term for strength, for mobility, for skeletal health, for balance, for confidence. All of these things fall under that umbrella. And the goal of the book is to give people all the tools they need to achieve what they want to achieve with those attributes, and to maintain the ability to stay independent for as long as they can.
And this is interesting because I hear this a lot. It's not just about, what's the actual word? I wrote it down here. It's not just about living long. It's like living a long, healthy life. I think the word is lifespan.
Yeah.
Is that the proper word that people use now? Life or health span? I can't remember what the term is.
Yeah. Health span, I would say.
Yeah. So lifespan is how long you live, and then health span is how healthy those years are, because we are getting older. We do live longer, right? But I mean, not to get too personal, but I've seen grandparents in my family, the last few years of their life are not great.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. Some of them being their body, some of them being their mind as well. So independence is not just independence now, it's independence all the way through to the true end of your life, and hopefully not losing that independence ahead of time.
100%. And that, especially nowadays, we're obsessed with this idea of longevity, aren't we? Yeah. So living longer, adding more years to your life. But I would argue, why do you want to live for more years if those years are of really poor quality? If you're in pain, if you can't do what you want to do, if you're weak, if you're relying on help from other people just to do normal basic daily things, to me, that's no quality. So for me, independence catches people in those last few years and says, rather than helping you to live longer, let's just help you add quality back to those years. But the process doesn't start at the end of life. It starts much earlier. And the earlier you start, the more chance you have of maintaining that quality for longer.
That's so, so important. So even things that are not physical, like muscular, skeletal, joint related, you even mentioned like resistance training can improve or delay dementia. Like these are other cardiovascular issues, like everything that makes, again, the last 4 or 5 years of your life truly difficult, to the point where sometimes, I mean, like, God forbid, with family, it's like those last 4 years, it is a burden on them, on other family members. It's not like it's not a fun last 4 years by any measure. You mentioned 4 pillars. So strength, bone, balance, and mobility.
Yeah.
I know you call them 4 pillars, so you may tell me, Scott, that's a stupid question, but is there one that is more important than the other, or one that you don't have to focus on as much?
It's a really good question. And I would say strength is the most important, because as we've discussed, if you can improve your strength, you're also going to get more mobile. You're also going to improve your balance, because being strong in your legs is a big part of staying on your feet. And you're also going to improve your bone and joint health as well. So if you could only prioritize one, it's strength all day long. The others are equally important underneath, but working on any one of those other things in isolation is not going to improve your strength, whereas working on strength improves everything. So that is almost like, even though it's 4 pillars, that's the one that holds everything else up more than the others.
The HubSpot Podcast Network is a Success Story partner. Now, real quick, if you like this show, you have to check out I Digress. It's on the HubSpot Podcast Network, hosted by Troy Sandage. He's great for taking the stuff that feels complicated in business, so that could be growth strategy, scaling all of it, and just making it simple. Episodes are under 30 minutes. You'll walk away with something you can use that day. Huel is a Success Story partner. Now, I'll be honest with you, I am terrible at eating well when my schedule gets packed. I'll look up, it's 2 p.m, I haven't even had a real meal, and then I'm just useless for the rest of the day because I'm hitting a wall. So I started keeping Huel around. It's been an absolute game changer. They just launched into Target stores nationwide, which is huge. You can walk right into your local Target right now, grab the Black Edition ready to drink and the Daily Greens ready to drink. The Black Edition, this is a full meal, 35 grams of protein, 27 essential vitamins and minerals, no artificial sweeteners, gluten-free, and it's under $5. I grab one of these in between recordings, done, I'm good for 2 hours. And the Daily Greens is more of a health thing. 42 vitamins, minerals, and superfoods in one bottle. It's developed by a registered nutritionist, 25 calories, 4 grams of fiber, and 1 gram of sugar. I'll have one first thing in the morning. It's the easiest win of my day. Now, 15% off for new customers. Use my code Scott at Huel.com/Scott and do the post-checkout survey. It helps the show. Go to Huel.com/Scott. Code Scott. Indeed is a Success Story partner. Now, if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Let me give you an example. If I needed to hire a new editor for this show, I'd go to Indeed and be super specific. Not just, can you edit audio? I'd say I need someone who's edited a conversational podcast for at least 3 years, gets our style, and knows our software. Someone who's done this before. And here's the thing with Indeed sponsored jobs. I'd get people who fit that description. I'm not digging through resumes from people who've edited one YouTube video. I'm getting actual podcast editors who know what they're doing. People who've worked on shows like ours and can prove it. That's what makes a difference. You get people who actually are what you're looking for. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. And people are finding quality hires right now. In the minute that I've been speaking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes, less stress, less time, and more results now with Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/Clary. Just go to Indeed.com/Clary right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Clary. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. You work with a whole bunch of people who do have true independence. Like, what does their life look like at 80, 90 years old? Like, what are we aiming for here? It's not to run a marathon. It's not to hit your, 1 rep max on a bench. Like, what does true independence look like if you were going to say, hey, you're 35, you're 35 now. This is what I want your life to look like if you listen to what I'm talking about and what I'm teaching.
And you say it's not to run a marathon. I sometimes have patients who do incredible things in their 80s. We had a gentleman in my online program who just wrote into the community area saying he'd just run a half marathon at 85, right? How awesome is that?
That is very cool, actually.
But yeah, that's not the norm, right? This is not the norm. I would say that the benefits people get from following these things are to just enjoy life, right? To be able to do the things you want to do, to not have to wake up and say, oh, I shouldn't do that because of my knee, or I can't do that anymore because I don't trust my legs. It's having that confidence in your body's ability to keep you safe and to keep you moving for as long as you want.
I'm curious about how you got into this niche. So from what I understand, every clinic in your town, in Farnham at the time, right? I think now you're in Surrey.
Same place.
Oh, is it?
Farnham, sorry.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm sorry. That's my
No,
ignorance.
it's fine. Yeah.
So in Farnham, every clinic was positioning as like a sports injury clinic. The majority, is that because soccer is very popular, or like what the football is very popular? Like, what's the reason why everything's a sports injury clinic in Farnham?
It's always baffled me. I think it's just because people think it's going to be more fun and more interesting working with sports people. But the thing that makes me laugh is the top sports people have got their own physios.
They
Or they're
definitely
part
do.
of a club.
Of course.
So then the other clinics are scrapping over a very small population of people, like the weekend warrior types.
Yeah.
So they're all fighting over this tiny, tiny group of people who do need treatment, but not as badly as the group of people that I've been helping.
So you were truly like one of the few clinics that opened for an older age physio?
I've never seen another clinic that explicitly specializes in people over the age of 50, which I think is mad. But one of the differences we did is there are clinics where if you look at their marketing, you can say, okay, that's clearly targeted at the older person, so similar to us. But from the outset, when I set up my business, I was 100% vocal and very clear about who the person was that I'd set this up for. So in big letters across the top of the website, still there now, we help people over 50 to rebuild strength, regain mobility, get off pain pills, and live a life that they enjoy. So right from the outset, I was very clear about that message. And I think that's one of the reasons why the business grew so fast in the early days, is because it was A, no one else was doing it, but B, this group of people had such an urgent need and it was just unfulfilled. There was no one who was for them, if you like. So they would go to these sports injury clinics and feel a bit out of place because, you know, Margaret, age 75 with a bad knee, is just seeing Johnny, age 33, doing squats and thinks, is this the right place for me? Yeah. Probably not. So we wanted to set up a place where she would feel at home.
You're doing your dream job and you're doing physio for this team. What was the thing that made you pivot? And you're like, I want to go help people that are really hurting, which is a very noble cause. But that's not the first thought that would pop into my mind when I've worked my whole life to be a sports physio, and then I get the job, and now I'm going to move away from it. So what was the thing?
Yeah, it was a funny story. So from about the age of 16, I was obsessed with the idea of being a physio in football. Thought, this is what I want to do. It's the only thing I'm interested in. I love football. I love physio. Let's combine them. It's going to be perfect, right? So all the way through university, I was obsessed with this one niche. And then as soon as I left university, it was like, let's try and find a job in professional football, which are really hard to come by. Now, massive stroke of luck. I had an in with the club doctor for Portsmouth Football Club, which is the club I'd always supported growing up. And I messaged him, he messaged back. He was like, let's set up an interview. Went through the interview, got offered the job, right? Amazing. Absolute dream come true. I couldn't believe it. Took the job, got in there, realized that I made an awful mistake. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I was not as well suited for that environment as I thought. And it was almost like the world comes crashing down because you spent your whole life training for this one thing, only to realize that actually it's not fulfilling for me. I'm not enjoying this, and I can't see myself doing another 10 years, never mind 30 years in this.
Why not?
It was weird. It was like the culture really, and my personality, I just don't think it gelled that well. And it's a very cutthroat environment. And I just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I didn't get the same fulfillment I thought I would of getting people back on the pitch. Now, I decided that once I'd made my mind up, there's no point hanging around here. Let me leave, go and get a job in the big hospital system while I figured out what to do, right? Because if you're working
for NHS.
Exactly. So when you're working in professional sport, you're probably paid less than minimum wage. It's like the best kept secret because you're working like 60-hour weeks.
Oh, I thought these guys made I thought in NHS or in public healthcare, you'd make nothing. And then with private professional sports, you'd be paying like 5x what every other physio.
No. At the top, so the top maybe like 10 jobs in the country, yes. Yeah. At the levels I was at, which long way from Premier League. So the salaries are pretty comparable to NHS, but in the NHS, you're working 37 hours a week. In professional sport, it's like 60. So much bigger time commitment, right? So I thought, let's leave, get an easier job in inverted commas while I figured out what I wanted to do with my life. It was a bit of like a quarter life crisis moment for me. So I went into the national health system. I was treating the, like a mill-like clinic, seeing 10, 15 people a day. 90% of them were over 50 because those are all